Hey everybody, it's Allison Durant coming to you from a very windy Calgary, Alberta, Canada. It's a beautiful, warm and windy day. When I say warm, I think it's about 9 degrees, maybe 10 degrees. And I think from what I'd seen on the news, it is supposed to drop something like 30 or 40 degrees over the weekend, especially in northern Alberta. So I'm just enjoying the nice weather and had to close the windows though because of our wind. And what I wanted to do today is just share a technique that I have I stumbled on it in 2019 when I was taking a course called Fresh Paint with Flora, Bowley and Lynzee, Lynx, two mixed media artists out of Portland. And the Fresh Paint course was really great because it emphasized the importance of finding your artist style through quantity and through creating as many works as you can in a very short period of time. And not about creating finished works, but just creating works that, are experiments and explorations and playful works on paper with different supplies, different substrates, whether it's paper, wood panel, canvas, different mark making supplies, whether it's like cutting off the end of celery or, vegetables and stamping with those things, or using, maybe a paper towel roll, those cardboard rolls, and doing different techniques. So that course was just a really fun way to experiment, and it kind of takes the pressure off when, I think as creatives and as artists, we all really want to find our authentic voice. And it's just something that was so important to me when I first started painting and creating. And this course, I suppose I feel like it takes the pressure off when you are just playing around. And I really stumbled on this technique that a lot of you have asked me about. So it's something I refer to as my reticulated technique, my reticulated textured pattern. And I'm not going to show you exactly how I use it now in my artwork, but I do want to show you how I stumbled on it. And I'm hoping that if it's a technique that you really enjoy and find intriguing, you can then get the same supplies I'm using today and do some experiments of your own, because it's a wonderful way of playing with, so in this case, it's fluid acrylics. You can also combine fluid acrylics and watercolor. As you get going, you'll find that there's so many ways you can kind of explore this texture in your work and this technique. But I thought I would just share how I kind of stumbled on it today. Well, not today, how I stumbled on it in 2019 and how it became part of my work, which was then actually published in the Fresh Paint book, which later came out that Flora Bowley had, she'd asked students to submit some work. I think they chose at random, I can't remember, but I was just so honored that my painting ended up in that book, as though it was kind of considered my own style, my own technique that was really authentic to how I pulled together that texture in my work. And I just feel like I've had so much interest in it, and I thought it would be kind of just a fun diversion to what I usually teach in my videos, which often is watercolor techniques and kind of how to create watercolor backgrounds. I don't edit my videos, and I feel like some days I really just want to turn off the camera and feel like I need to start over, but that's just a little bit about my personality. And I'm just going to kind of go with what comes to me in the moment, and that's how I paint best, that's how I create best, and kind of find a flow and a rhythm. When I first was working on, I'm just trying to think of how to like summarize what I want to share. Well, this is a cradled wood panel, and this is not finished, but this is just an example of, I can just zoom you guys up a bit. My father is he does the most beautiful woodwork, and his name is Don McGregor, and so it says handcrafted by D. McGregor. So McGregor is my maiden name. And this cradled wood panel and this shape I just found really interesting. And so he had kindly made a bunch of these wood panels. And this is just one in progress where I have taken this reticulated pattern and I'm using it as a jumping off point, almost as though you're looking, for me, the way I kind of feel like this represents my work. I spent a lot of my time, my childhood summers in Nova Scotia near the Atlantic Ocean, and I've also spent a lot of time near the Pacific Ocean and also in Kauai. And so much of this technique reminds me of the beauty of hovering over these landscapes that have the depths of these, unique blues of the ocean, of our earth. And everything from this reticulated pattern reminded me of, coral reefs and, trees, branches, connections. And I think because of my healthcare background, I think of these as, I think they refer to it as dendritic patterns. I call them reticulated patterns, but those patterns that we find in our body, when we think of our cardiovascular system and our nervous system and the neurons in our brain, the dendrites, those pathways. I'm kind of going into a conversation, I guess I want to get back to, kind of looking down, if you're kind of landing over the top of an island or, maybe a desert and seeing sand, beautiful sand dunes next to the water. That's how I see this background pattern. And I refer to it as a reticulated pattern, a reticulated technique. But there's many artists that also use this pattern and this technique, and this is by no means something that's my own. But I have felt the way I have pulled it into my own style. This has just become one of my styles that I love to use in my work as like a jumping off point. So I'm just going to move that panel and I'll show you, I'm going to show you a really large piece that I've been working on. So I'm probably going to have to, I'm not going to zoom you up. So this has plastic on it because when I have works in progress, I'm not quite finished. I just wanted to carefully flatten them in a crystal clear bag that would just protect them over time. And I'm just going to show you. This is that reticulated or dendritic pattern that I'm talking about today, and I hope to kind of teach you just the very starting point of how I stumbled on it so many years ago. This is something I had created, this background, with watercolors as well as fluid acrylic paints. And when I refer to fluid acrylics, I'm talking about I really love golden fluid acrylics. This is just a really wonderful kind of taste of those fluid acrylics in this particular box, the 10 fluid, 10 fluid mixing acrylics. And then I really like to use, this is one that a great brand, Liquitex acrylic ink, and this is cerulean blue. I'm going to be using this brand today. So you can do this technique with many different types of paints. You can water down your own acrylics. You can use inks, so not just acrylic inks, but like India inks, such as this Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay ink. You just have to know, read about their properties, watch other artists, YouTube videos or, reels, gather the information from, actually Dr. P.H. Martin's website. See if you can really get to know these products, or play with them first and then go research them. But it's all about kind of letting go and just experimentation and working in quantity. And so this is just an example of one of my really large mountain paintings that I had done with that technique. I wanted to share, this is one I had done on paper, and this will give you, whoops, a close look. And I have so many paintings that I have done with this technique that it's hard to know where to start to kind of show you. When I was working on my art poetry deck and before publishing this deck, I was kind of playing around with what art I wanted, with what words, and I just picked out a few that would show that reticulated pattern. So these did not make the cut for my deck. You can see this background. At this point, when I had it printed, I realized I'd forgotten to make the background white. This one I really, really love. This did not make the cut, but Embrace Happy Accidents. And so this was gonna be a card in my art poetry deck. I had this printed locally by a company called Little Rock Printing, just as a draft to see, you know, what it would feel like to have my art, you know, in this format. And I didn't end up using Little Rock for printing. That's a whole nother video. What I wanted to show you is this little one though. This card really summarizes embracing happy accidents, which is how I discovered the reticulated technique and decided to incorporate it in my work. I found it extremely interesting. Protect what you love. So actually reading these words, I've also kind of protected sharing everything about this technique, because I think as artists, it's really important to feel you have to make the decision, you know, if you're going to teach some of your style or your work or your techniques, you know, that's a personal decision, but you also want to protect, you know, maybe there's just little secrets that all of us artists are not quite willing to share or may never share. And I think that's just the fun mystery of some creatives. And, you know, I do want to still protect the exact way I do some of this technique, but I want to share enough that, you know, you will probably stumble on the same, how do I say, doing it the same way that I do it prior to, I guess, calling it a finished work. This looks like an angel's wing to me, and I think of angels, you know, I think of, you know, if, you know, we've lost somebody in our life, I do believe we have those people that we love, still their energy looking down on us. I believe we all have angels, and I just see that as an angel wing, and that's why I'd chosen the words protect what you love. And I don't think I put this work into the card deck. Isn't that funny? So I did 71 cards. And I'll just share with you, let's see, I'll just share with you. So there's a lot of my mountains which do not use the technique. This one, Respect and Create History. There's that gorgeous reticulated pattern that I feel like turned out like a feather. And this one, Be Open to New Opportunities. And it was because I took that fresh paint course, I took a leap and I invested in my creativity, and I was open to the opportunity of just exploring materials, colors that I really enjoyed, exploring the introduction of creativity in my life on a daily basis and fitting it in. And, you know, this is where it has led me. So letting go of what's not serving you. And for me, well, I would just say if I was to let go of what's not serving me, it's that pressure that, you know, when I started working on my art and it became a business, you know, art as a business is just so different from art as enjoyment and creating for just the process of creating. And I'm still trying to let go of, you know, when I sit down and create, just turning off in my head, you know, that idea that it has to be a final piece that's going to be sold and, or, you know, made into print or reproduced or, you know, framed, blown up, whatever. Just letting go of that concept for me is something, I mean, I have to kind of remind myself of all the time. And just thought I'd share that. Oh, but the whole reason I'm showing you this card, this is one of my girls from my Matters of the Art series, and she is, her face is made up of that reticulated pattern. This one, again, find rainbows. That is that reticulated pattern, that textured pattern that I achieved by mixing. Oh, there it is. I did include that card. That is so funny. For those of you that haven't seen my deck or may not have it, this is a good little kind of flip through. I'm just going to go down a bit. And we'll get painting pretty quick here. So add texture to your life. And I think I was thinking of that as I just love how this is, you know, almost flat texture. It's not, you can get this texture by kind of smushing heavier body acrylic paint, or like, you know, a thicker consistency than fluid acrylics to get more texture. But I like the feel of this being smooth texture, but when you look at it, it almost looks like it is 3D, or, you know, you could just jump into the ocean here. These are just little samples that I'm going to show you how to do today. Tomorrow is a new day. And so that was that reticulated technique again. And I'll just kind of keep flipping through here. I'm curious, oh yes, my this painting I had done to raise money for the Ukraine just after the war broke out, plant seeds of joy. And that is the reticulated pattern in the background. This one, positive thinking is powerful, same thing. And because these cards are reproduced into print onto cardstock, you know, of course you lose what that original can give you. You lose the beautiful transparency, the colors. And so these cards just don't do it justice. I think that's what I'm trying to say. This one, map out your vision. There's that reticulated pattern, and I put in this beautiful little bird looking up at the moon. This one, celebrate small successes. This girl was a slightly different technique. This girl, I did half the reticulated pattern and half of a different technique. So if you see really closely, there's that reticulation all through the left-hand side. Well, it would be her right actually, but my left. And respecting your rhythm. I chose these words because I was thinking of her as like a day-night rhythm, how during the day, the whole creative side of my brain is lit up and all those dendrites, those neurons are firing. I'm creating all these beautiful new pathways and solidifying the things that I love in the creative process in here, and it's brighter. I love the sunlight that comes with some of our days, the transparency that that comes with light. And this is where I do find nights harder. I find darkness harder. I find my rhythm is harder in terms of nighttime, and just the contrast in this piece of how it's so dark on this side and then so lit up on that side. And I respect my rhythm by trying to keep a good sleep hygiene routine. That's kind of a big goal of mine, seems all the time. And then this particular one is a beautiful, beautiful example with, I think I'd used that cerulean blue. I used some silver. Where's my silver I think ran out. Yes, but my Liquitex iridescent bright silver. I had used those ones for sure in this piece, I remember. And then also some blue. It could have been this muted turquoise by Liquitex, so this acrylic ink. And that's how I got that gorgeous background. And listening to the universe, listening to how we feel when we're creating. This girl, I really wanted her to have almost like she was looking at her reflection in the water. So this was actually a totally different technique, but I incorporated some of the reticulated pattern into those beautiful gold, almost like coral reefs, plant structures, sand dunes, pathways. And this one, because of my healthcare background, this reminded me of a heart, an anatomical heart in some way. And that's why I had put on here, protect your heart and feed your soul. And by creating for ourselves, that is something that we're doing automatically. Just in by the process of creating, we're lowering our blood pressure, we're calming our mind, we're creating new connections within our brain that, just are lighting up. This one, same thing. I did mark making over top of that beautiful background. And then have my mountains, which are actually looking at in my studio here on the wall. Don't get stuck in the details. So the reason I had chose these words for this card, the lady that had purchased the original from me had just gotten back from a trip to the desert, and she said this whole reticulated background to her, this art, this image, made her feel like she was back in that place again, that she was back on vacation, and she just saw sand dunes. And even though I used a lot of purples and pinks, it made me remember what she told me when at the time I was selling my art in 2020, so we were standing outside of my home studio with masks on, and she came to pick up this painting, but really just, I remember so clearly her telling me it reminded her of her recent vacation and the sand dunes and just the beautiful colors. And I think probably sunsets, what she was saying with the pinks, and not getting stuck in the details. At the time, my son, he was probably only 3 or 4, and he was really into vehicles, construction vehicles, and learning all the names of off-road vehicles. And I think I was thinking of, sometimes I get stuck in creating and finishing a piece, and at the same time I was playing with him and had that lady come to the door and talk about sand dunes, and I was showing him vehicles that might go over sand and what wheels they have, and the words were so easy. Just don't get stuck, pardon the pun, don't get stuck in the sand dunes, and don't get stuck in the details, which I feel like I'm kind of doing now on this unedited video. There's 2 more paintings. This was actually a commission. I did a triptych, and I believe it went to the UK. I forget, Melanie, where did I send it? I think Melanie is out of the UK. She's a wonderful artist herself and was supporting me. We both took the fresh paint course, and she had me do several commissions at the time when I was when I first started out, and I thought commissions would be a good thing for my mental health, but they're not. But anyway, this is an example of the piece that went in the middle of her triptych. This one, reminding everybody, no matter what you're doing, if it's hobby or creative work, try and only do it for yourself. Don't do it for any other reason other than knowing that it's what feels good to you. So I try not to paint, again, because I know somebody wants this painting and will pay money for it if I replicate it, or, you know, if they ask for certain colors or certain images, and, you know, it's never going to be what they have in their head, and it's a lot of pressure, and I don't create well under pressure. I don't edit videos because of time pressures, and just I would feel the need to kind of perfect the video, and I don't believe perfection is good for me, and I want to get out of that need for, you know, editing and having it just right. And if I say something by mistake that's wrong, or, you know, maybe there's a blip in my video, I just want to not care, and I want to just do it for myself. I want to reinvent myself, which comes to, there's that reticulated pattern, and I finally feel I'm at a place where I can start sharing some of it, because I mean, let's be honest, it's out there. Everybody, I mean, we all learn from everybody. I've taken so many classes. I have seen this technique done many different ways by many different artists, and I've seen artists use this as, you know, part of their style as well. We're all like, you know, pushing and pulling and taking from each other, and I think the key is just to find a rhythm where if you say you love this technique that I'm going to show you today, somehow you make it your own. You use colors that are something more that you would choose. You know, maybe you would try working on a different substrate. You might try, again, incorporating watercolors, mixing them with acrylic inks, doing collage, putting your own images over top. Whatever, you know, if you're an artist right now and you're watching this video, is there a way you can merge the art that you're already creating or that you love to create and incorporating that into your own style? Maybe you're just doing this for fun, and that's just great. And I was talking about nighttime and how I find getting into bed at night and darkness, it's really uneasy for me, and it always has been. I have a lot of dark thinking at night, and it's hard to turn off my brain. I've really worked hard to, again, try and channel those more positive thoughts and relaxing thoughts before bed, and accepting the meaning in darkness, and knowing that you know, we have a lot of light in our lives that comes from so many things, but we also have, there's a lot of darkness, and there's a lot of hard things that are going on in the world, and knowing that sometimes, though, the darkness makes us appreciate the light so much more. There's a lot of meaning behind it when you can really tap into those feelings that you might have if you're like me and you don't appreciate the night, the dark. And I probably wouldn't be an artist if I didn't have those dark times. So I am going to flip my art poetry cards back in their little box. I can hear the wind outside, and oops, you can probably hear the wind from me bumping the tripod. I know it makes a bit of a wind tunnel sound. Just gonna get it. And so we're at the halfway mark if I was aiming for a 1-hour video. And again, I don't really worry too much about how long my videos are. I just do what feels right at the time. I am gonna just show you with these Liquitex acrylic inks. Too bad this silver. I'm gonna swap it out with a bronze. Maybe we can make some bronze, almost like sand dune marks with this iridescent rich copper. So I'm going to be using a variety of different acrylic inks, and you know, you can use, again, watered down acrylic paints. You kind of just want to go for the same consistency that would say drop out of a droplet bottle, but I mean, these are highly, highly pigmented, but they're fluid for a reason, so they're quite thin, and it's hard to know how to kind of, you know, say what consistency. But if you just purchased one or two of your favorite colors of these acrylic inks, and you decided to invest in trying this process, I do feel like Liquitex is a pretty good brand. I find they've been quite consistent with the exception of their red, the Naphthol Crimson. This one has not been as pigmented, so you want to give them a shake. But unfortunately, we'll see how this one is. You give it a good shake, and I'm just gonna put it down. You're gonna wanna have a paper towel handy because you're gonna wanna catch the drips. And I'm just taking a very cheap piece of watercolor paper, cold pressed, and pressing it down. And that's what we were given. Now, I don't see that reticulated pattern in here because this is just very liquid, and I want to show you more of the thicker, where you can get a bit of a thicker effect, and it's trial and error with what materials you're using. So if you've been following me, you know that I've been doing collage work out of this Canson mixed media fluid mixed media book. And I'll link it because I actually, well, what I want to do right now is open it up and I'm gonna just, what I'm gonna do is just tear out a page. So this comes with a nice perforated edge. And because this Canson mixed media coil book comes with a really unique dark purple cover and coil, and I covered it though, so let's see if I can get this off. I just used a glue stick, so I'll just glue this back on with something stronger. So fluid mixed media, 7 by 10 inches, 154 pounds. So that's heavier than a watercolor paper. And this is more of a plastic, almost like a hot pressed feel to it. And so I'm just gonna open this back up. And I've torn out a page, and what I'm gonna do is take this excess and just turn it over and smush it down. You can do this with, again, any acrylic paint. And when you lift it up, each time it's going to be different. And each time, the way the air gets in, the water mixes with the pigments, you can see there's that reticulated pattern. And I find this kind of plasticky, hot pressed, I mean, this booklet is made for fluid media, which would mean these ones would work well in here. So just to show you another example, what am I gonna do? I think what I'll do is show you, I'm just gonna change my position here. And so if you have the same coil book of the, again, the Canson Fluid Mixed Media book, which I just got at Michael's. I love how it's a coil book because what I'm going to do is put my acrylic paints on and really simply take the next page down and just smooth it out and pull it back. And just know, again, with fluid acrylic, you're going to have some leaking around the edges, so you're going to want to catch it with some other, paper. I would just use other watercolor paper where you can just possibly create something else on the underside of this book. And so you're gonna shake up your acrylic inks. And just gonna put a little bit down. This one seems really watered down, which I'm not sure why. Knowing me, I added maybe some water to it. And I'm gonna use, so I'm using cerulean blue and then this muted turquoise, which is a gorgeous transparent color. And I'm gonna use the iridescent copper. I encourage you to use either iridescent copper, iridescent gold, or iridescent silver, because with Liquitex, I know these go on slightly differently, and the texture that you can get is awesome. So just doing a drop, say, up here, not overthinking it, just getting down. You can see a whole bunch of dried pieces. So just getting down some color. And then taking a page, so I'm actually going to use this page, or no, I'm not. I'm going to use, let's see. Yep, I am going to use that page. This is an example of one I had just done this morning. And you're just going to put the page down. I'm going to use a glove as I get messy. And you're basically just smooshing paint. Smishing fluid acrylic, which is not water soluble when it dries. It doesn't usually reactivate like watercolors. It's a permanent paint. And I'm just gonna push it down, rub it around, and the exciting anticipatory part comes in, our anticipatory dopamine, and we're gonna pull it apart. And wow, okay, that actually turned out beautifully. So when I am looking at this, I'm seeing that this is already coming to a natural drip, and I could continue to drip it down. I have a beautiful duplicate. It's quite big. It's hard to show you all the full thing on camera, but you can see this is the left side. And I want you to look at how much texture came with the iridescent copper. So I'm just gonna hold it up. See how the iridescents are a little bit thicker and that texture. And then of course, when it hits the light, when we bring in light, the shimmer that you can get is so beautiful. And then I want you to compare that to the cerulean blue and the muted turquoise, and how these had, I may have watered them down. I do think I had watered them down, which I tend to do because I just like to play with different techniques, but that is how I achieved more of that gorgeous watercolor effect. And this alone is the perfect jumping off point for a landscape. You could do acrylic painting over top. You could do collage. You could turn it into whatever you're seeing in this beautiful image. And it just takes the pressure off of, how do you say, breaking the blank page. I mean, we've broken 2 blank pages. And then what I'm gonna do is, while this is still wet, you can actually take another page, and I'm just gonna, what am I gonna do? Maybe I'll do this one. So, you know, this already has the red on it. Maybe I'm gonna, you know, I can just be brave and actually put this right over top and then see what I get. So while your one page is still drying, you can come back and basically take a print. You can take more of that wet paint and make another page. And just check that out. I'm so glad that I was hesitant to merge the red with what was on this page and then the bronze, but this is gorgeous. This is incredible. If I was to cut this out, you know, and collage it as a flower onto a painting, it really is so beautiful. And the more you do this, the more you get to know your paints, your substrate. You know, I would grab a whole bunch of, like a whole variety of papers to have on hand. So if I was just to look around me, I would take, for instance, this is tissue paper, and so I would just be brave and go over top and just see what I get. And it may wreck it, but I don't care. I'm just knowing that this is all part of experimentation and play. And so there is a beautiful tissue paper, painted paper, that we can later use in our artwork. And then if you look at this, when I put on that tissue paper, it left these really beautiful bubbles. So immediately we're making two different paintings when they were sort of that exact, I forget the name of that, what it's called, but those mirror images in psychology or psychiatry, you can then challenge yourself and say, okay, what do I love about this, and how do I want to make it my own, and how do I want to finish it? Then you can take this one and make it totally different, or you can see how close can you get them to being similar. So let's just say you really loved the red, the way that this came out, and so let's just be bold, and I'm going to shake it up. Even though this is quite liquidy and I wish it had more pigment, I'm going to put it right over this area. That's a lot of paint. I probably did a bit too much, but I'm just going to take this page back, and I've decided that I want to see what it will give me when I add the red. The page is getting quite wet, so you'll know what papers that you like to use best. And there we have, again, a whole new base to work with. So you can continue adding to it as those underlayers start to dry, or you can continue working on it while they're still wet. So there's just so many opportunities. And when I first started painting, I was really into, I suppose, like purchasing things. Like these are papers made by that Australian artist, mixed media artist, Jane Davenport. I believe these are some of her papers that I had purchased. For those of you that, this is this is a whole bunch of note-taking I had done. But what I'm going to do is just be brave and turn this over, making sure I don't have anything personal in here. That's so funny. I'm just going to take this and make it my own and maybe collage with it. Because when I first started, I would just go to Michael's and I would go into their art journaling section, not the art section, and I would kind of get into buying more artwork from other artists versus my own. Just seeing what I'm getting. I love that textured from the bronze up there. And then this is one I had tried a while ago with black on it, just on a really loose piece of scrap paper. And, you know, maybe I just want to try and go over top and just dab up that red paint. And then it changes into something different. This is such thin paper that it could be easy to collage on a future work. So, you know, and I can see a bird here, actually. A bird, there's the beak, and it's facing to my right. And I see a branch, and that's so funny. I didn't notice that initially. So you'll start to see things in your work. And so let's just do another one. I'm just going to close this, and we'll flip the page and let's just use, so this is a little bit different. This is Bombay India ink. It's by Dr. P.H. Martins and it's magenta. So it's a different type of paint. And I'm just gonna put down a little bit. And then I really like green gold. Now this I had purchased from Inglewood Art Store here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. This is, I believe, a Canadian company called Tri Art. So Tri, T-R-I, Art. And it is green gold. And this is a very high quality paint. Shake thoroughly. And I probably need to unclog the end, but oh, that's good. And I'm really just kind of getting the color down. I can even, if I wanted to, add a little spritz of water. So and let's just use a little bit of this orange India ink as well. And you can see that I have a bit of time to play. It's enough droplets, it's still gonna stay wet for a while. And here's the exciting part. Making sure, again, you know when you push down, you might get ink all over the side of this. So having a paper towel handy, especially if you're like me and you initially get excited and use a lot of paint, sometimes less is more for this. And then we're gonna pull it back. And that is such a beautiful, beautiful spread already. I really find it interesting how it looks like leaves up here. And this Tri Art happens to be a little bit more the consistency of the iridescent metallics from Liquitex. So I really like that I had purchased Tri Art to try it, pardon the pun, and I just see that this would be my go-to color, this green gold versus Liquitex, because I am just getting more of the texture I like. I also like how I added in the orange, and right now I'm gonna kind of add in a bit more orange because I know that for myself, certain colors kind of light me up. And so if you did what I would say is called a pull, where you're kind of pulling a print away from each other, pulling a print off of something, you can, you know, if you've done any jelly plate printing or taken any classes, you know, they'll call it kind of like a pull. So you can modify the pull and make it more appealing. So this one I actually like better because I have way more of that beautiful orange. And then again, I will decide, do I like this as is? Do I want to work with this, or do I want to keep going? So I want to keep going on this one, and I just want to add in a little bit more bronze. And so we're just going to go back and push it down, and then, okay, now that is, I'm glad I took the risk and added more bronze, because for me, this could be a gorgeous final painting. And that's when it's, I mean, it's not dry yet. It took all of a matter of, you know, minutes and a free mind where you're just not trying to make it seem like anything. And you have the opportunity, for instance, when this dries, you can create a whole painting. You can decide what you want to do with it, whether it's, you know, cut it up, collage, use your mark making, your Posca pens over top. You might just want to use pencil. You might want to use it as your grocery list. But the amazing thing is knowing that whatever you do, you can replicate it or change it based on what you learned from the other, you know, your initial try on the other side. And I just see almost like a red tulip in there, right here. And then I just wanted to share, when I first started YouTube, I think that was about 1.5 years ago. I can't actually remember. I'm gonna just, maybe I'll keep my gloves on. I was really into, when I was designing my art poetry deck, when I was in the process of the deck, I had purchased a lot of cards, blank cards, just to practice on, practice techniques, practice images, get the feel of a deck in my hands. And I had purchased these ones on Amazon Canada by Imagame. So it looks like Imagame, but it's Imagame. They're called blank tarot cards. And there's 80 in here, and it's called durable cardstock. And what I had found is, I mean, I am very familiar with painting on watercolor paper, but I was not as familiar with a surface like the one we're working on now, this Canson mixed media acrylic, this fluid, how do I say, this is made for fluid mixed media. But it's very different if you were to do watercolor on it. And these cards, which came, these 80 blank cards, which came in this box, which I will link, I've done several videos with these cards. But this material is the perfect material for fluid acrylics, at least for this technique I'm showing you. And this is just my opinion, but both sides work lovely. So if I was to take a pull, I almost don't want to wreck this, but I'm going to take a risk because it could become something so much more interesting. I want to get the bronze, and I want to get that kind of tulip, and I just want to push down and pick up a lot of paint, and I'm just leaving the corner up just not to get my finger dirty and then not to have to wreck it underneath. And then that is the beautiful card that has come from something that, again, was just experimental, and it's the material that these cards, this cardstock is made of, that's kind of a plasticky, you know, I would really not like painting on this card with watercolor, but permanent, highly pigmented inks, such as these, you know, Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay inks, or I think these are made with shellac. There's something different about, you kind of have to get to know what you're using, but just play, and you will just have so much fun. It's kind of an addicting process. So a couple summers ago, I took out so many of these little cards. I went outside because I do find the inks have a bit of an odor, and I am prone to headaches. I'm just gonna set this aside here. But I would just like have some blank cards handy and basically grab some material. Whoops. I'm going to use the orange and magenta Bombay inks. I love that orange, so getting some orange down, not too much. And then remembering, I love the iridescents. They are amazing. And just, whoop, that's a lot. And kind of looking at the pattern as to what you've done, because if you get to the point where you love this technique, you can start to control the patterns. So I'm just going to push down and then lift up. Oh, that is like, if this was, say I did artist trading cards and just put like a word on here, I would turn this, I would add, you know, with my micron pen, I would turn this into a flower. But isn't this beautiful as is? And then if you're like, okay, well, I wonder if I can be brave and just get even more of a pull, even more paint on another blank page. And I'm glad I was brave. This reminds me again of a heart, the anatomy sort of, even though it really doesn't look like a heart. For this one, okay, let's just be brave. And I'm missing that green gold by Tri Art. So I'm going to add just the smallest amount, not too much. And let's just do another pull, but this time, because we saw a potential botanical, an abstract botanical image, let's just add a bit of green. And then we have, again, another really beautiful, unique card, jumping off point. So this is so much fun, and I just wanted to introduce you to, I guess, these little cards. You can find paper, I mean, just gather paper you have around your house. If you have, you know, a couple acrylic inks, whether you want to try the Liquitex or, you know, just start with buying one or two. And this process, you will find, you know, even buying two and you enjoy mixing them, this process will just lead you down a road of endless enjoyment, relaxation. It's a great activity to do with kids. And, you know, you can decide to put a heavier, say, acrylic paint in here. I'm just looking, I have this abstract Sennelier. This is titanium white. This is a heavier body acrylic paint. But, you know, you may decide you just want to be brave and, say, add a little bit of, just see if I can get in here, like a little bit of white. And this is a good brand, by the way, if you're just kind of starting out with acrylic painting. You can get a pack of, you know, the primary colors plus black and white, and it's called Abstract by Sennelier. And then so I have this white on here, and maybe you want to just see if you can get every last bit of color on here, but having the new edition of white. And we're going to get a thicker, more tactile, textured pattern because it's heavier body. So I love the subtlety in, I don't know if you can see the white on camera. It's so stunning. And now you have more room to play, you know, or write a word on this particular card. I could just do this all day. So I'm going to take a break because it's almost been an hour, and I want to just say, make sure you keep a whole bunch of papers handy, you know, tags that maybe if you'd purchased something at the store and it came with like some kind of a tag, trying that material, trying different types of watercolor papers or fluid mixed media papers, trying papers that, again, like I really, really loved this and I want to make it my own. So this was those Jane Davenport papers. You already have a jumping off point, but you can do a pull with this paper by just putting it down over top and seeing what you get. I want to also share with you one last book, sort of resource. When these dry, again, you can just leave them as is, or you can revisit them. And this book, I haven't looked at this book in so long, but you can, so this book is by a beautiful artist, Yelena James. You probably know her if you've been on social media. She has a really, really great following. Star Branch Spiral fan, learn to draw from nature's perfect design structures. And just check this out. So you could, you know, just take some inspiration from, for example, Yelena, and take some of this imagery and use it to, you know, kind of make it your own, but use, you know, this as, say, a background. And if for instance, this does remind you of coral, you can take all of this imagery and, or, you know, find imagery. This is just an example, just to kind of feel like you can really jump off with something interesting on the background that you've just created. And I would just encourage you, when you use these resources, of course, you want to learn from them, you want to play, you want to practice, but make sure you are making it your own. A lot of this stuff, of course, would be copyright. So just using this, you know, I like to just lay in bed at night and grab a book and just take in some of the images. And then if it was an idea I really wanted to run with, I would find royalty-free images or use some of my own photos, you know, if I had some of, you know, vacations where there might be more like plant life, or just making it your own. So getting these ideas, like look at her work. It's just, this is just a beautiful book to kind of look at and calm your mind. And she is really good to share in her teaching. These are some stickers, I believe. I think these are from her book. I'm not sure. I have those tucked in here. So this is an exercise of the evolving fan shape, but just, you know, maybe learning from doing a bunch of drawings, you know, getting comfortable with drawing. If you're not comfortable with drawing, you can do, say, find a magazine image, a collage image, something similar to this. It just, you know, trying to jump off again from imagery from another artist to then use and kind of make this unique background your own. And this type of art background is really unique. Even if somebody had the same materials, the same substrate, you can, you know, be next to somebody who's trying to do the exact same thing, and it's going to end up different, but you can make it even more different by running with it. She had some where you can actually color in these pages at the back. So that's pretty neat, very generous of her to have it like a little coloring book, a coloring page, and then you can do your own drawings. So, you know, just having an inspiration file, you know, maybe finding this book at the library, and again, just not copying from it, but just getting ideas, going on Pinterest and looking up, say, ocean imagery or ocean plant life, maybe coral, and doing some of your own line work over top of these bases. Maybe you don't see these patterns as landscapes. You may just see them, again, for myself, I see different things, including, you know, heart anatomy with my medical background. But I often think I see license plates here in Canada, and it's so funny. I'm like, oh, that's the acronym for this medical condition. Or I'll be sitting behind a car and the license plate, I will, before I did nursing, I did medical information management and coding, which I had to learn all of the medical acronyms to do sort of transcription and interpret what the nurses and doctors were writing in health records. And the reason I'm telling you this is because my background being medical, I'm seeing medical things in this abstract image, this artwork we've created, but you may see something entirely different. And going with what you see and what relates to you as a person. Right now, I actually see a poppy in this image here, and I would want to turn that into a poppy. And anyways, so I hope I've inspired you today. I will link these blank tarot cards, and as well that paper I was working with, the Canson Fluid Mixed Media paper. I will try and reference everything that you may want to know and look up, but I would just say start with just a few inks. It doesn't have to be full on buying the rainbow, just, you know, deciding if it's a process you might actually like and want to do. And checking out Star Branch Spiral Fan. This was just washi tape. I had extra and I didn't want to waste it, so that's not part of the cover. But Yelena James. And I'm really glad I did this video because I want to go back to this book, which I haven't looked at. I see how I tagged a few of the pages. Sand dollars are part of my childhood when I would be in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, and collect sand dollars as a kid. They're just such an incredible ocean find. So just that's something I may want to eventually incorporate into my own work. And I'm glad I tagged it because I didn't write it down and now I just have it in my head. I tagged this page as well. I really liked some of this line work, and you know, possibly that's where I got the idea for some of my line work when I first started, because I do love adding line work into my art. So wonderful that there's such a generous community of artists. And yeah, thank you again for being here. I hope you have fun today.